Please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
So yeah, I 2004 graduate RTVF, but like once I started, I was the kid in school, and you might have been this way too in elementary school, middle school, high school, where I thought I was going to be a director and a writer. You did that thing, but I thought I was going to do that too, and every project I did for school was a film project, and went to Northwestern, and I was like, wow, these are some talented people. Like maybe I shouldn't do this thing because I don't have that talent creatively necessarily. Producing wise, there's still maybe some hope for me left, but we'll see about it.
Yeah, Northwestern attracts, for whatever reason, a lot of talent. And it's so funny because it's a school that is not, there's no vetting process to get in terms of your creative talent. It's all, as you know, it's all based on your performance in school. Yeah. But yet there is a sea of talent there that is really unparalleled, I think, even amongst like a conservatory that you have to audition for.
Are you bumping into a lot of former NU grads out in the Los Angeles area, if that's where you're currently based?
I spent 8 years in LA, but now I'm back in New York City.
Okay.
So yeah, I keep in touch with my Wildcat alums. I mean, there's a lot kind of floating around the business in various ways. So it's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's great to represent. My wife and I always joke, she went to a small liberal arts school, and she tends to run into her alums far more than I do. But here we are. We're setting a new trend, and I'm very excited to have you on to talk about your amazing. What I don't understand, Spencer, is this is your debut. Like, how is Abandoned coming out in theaters Friday, June 17th, and streaming everywhere June 20th? How is this your first feature? This is hats off, like amazing film, like so atmospheric. And I just really enjoyed catching up with it. I'm really glad this worked out. I know there were some last minute kind of scheduling things. I managed to sneak it in right beforehand. And this was before I knew you were an NU grad. So biases aside.
I'm not just here for the Wildcat thing. I like that.
Not at all. That's just a bonus.
Nice. Look, yeah, having this be my first feature film, a lot of luck on my side. Let's put it that way. That's the tough thing about this crazy entertainment business, is that you can do and you can try and force things, but at the end of the day, a lot of it is a matter of being in the right place at the right time. But that's not to discount the tons and tons of hard work that was poured into this project, both in the packaging and the casting part of it, which lasted, almost a year, trying to find Emma Roberts to play the lead. And then, throughout the pre-production and then post-process. I mean, this film was a lot of work, but it was very rewarding work. And, I have been kicking around Los Angeles for, quite some time. So this wasn't something that fell into my lap right away. I did spend a lot of years working in restaurants and being a house manager for a producer, and literally taking out the trash for like a very long time. So it is a very fortuitous entry into the business, but it doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of lead up to it where it wasn't so lucky.
Well, because I'm looking at your filmography, and there's no indication that this was going to be the next step for you. Obviously have established actor and talent in your own right, but there is no, if I'm looking at the breadcrumbs, there's nothing leading me towards like, oh, next project for Spencer is going to be this amazing horror movie, Abandoned. And by the way, Spencer's going to be directing a feature nonetheless. So how did this fall into your lap? What do you have on the producers to have given you this shot?
Well, some of that I've signed the NDA, so I cannot tell you all of that, but I'll give you little hints of it. No, look, I made a short film in 2018. And it was like, you know, a typical thrown together shoestring short film that you do when you decide you want to direct. You got to make your short film. And there was something about that short film, I'll never know what it was, that got the attention of one of the producers on this project. And then that producer became my manager. And his name's Byron Wetzel. And I actually met him on a film set as an actor. So I was on this rowing movie that we shot in 2019, right before the pandemic, as an actor. And I happened to share this short film I made with him. And for whatever reason, he saw something in it. Again, I don't know what. It was definitely a bizarre short film by design. And he took me on as a client because of this short film. And then he received the script for Abandoned later on in about 2020 for John Gallagher Jr. to play the husband role that he plays.
Okay.
And it was at that time that Byron also sent me the script. And he said, would this be something that you would ever be interested in directing? Because it was to be a low budget film. So there was this opening where I, as a first time feature director, could potentially make my way into it as a director. So I said, yes, there is something about this script that I find incredibly compelling. And it was mainly the mental health, depression, psychosis angle of it, especially being, you know, that was early pandemic. I think a lot of my own personal issues that I was dealing with in terms of my mental health were bubbling to the surface. So it was something that I felt very passionate and like fired up to explore in a film. And so I spoke to John Gallagher Jr. because he is also managed by my manager. So that's if I have anything on the producers, it's that we happen to share a manager who very brilliantly and kindly brought me together with first John Gallagher Jr. And it was about him seeing the short film that I made, and it was about us having a conversation and me sharing my vision for the film and him responding to it. And he signed on based off of that, but also based on the fact that we shared a manager. You know, so these things are never like black and white, and it's almost never like the salacious thing that you think it could be. But it's also not always just like, oh my God, I wrote a script and so I ran into them in a coffee shop. You know, there is a rhyme and a reason to it. And with John Gallagher Jr. attached, then we were able to go out and try and find actresses to play Sarah, his wife, which was eventually played by Emma Roberts. And that's the part of the process that was like Hollywood magic, because I didn't know Emma. Byron had met her like once or twice at a party like 10 years ago or whatever. Like, we didn't have a connection to Emma. The connection was that we sent the script to her agent, and the script was sent to her to read, and she responded to the script, and then also to my short film, which was given to her, obviously. Yeah. But she loved the idea of playing this mother, because she had just given birth to her own son 9 months before we shot the film. And so it was being in the right place at the right time. She really wanted to do a piece that challenged her. She wanted to do a piece that felt fresh in terms of like a millennial take on a mother, because we obviously have the classic takes on a woman struggling with mothering a baby or potentially mothering a baby, but she wanted to do a fresh take on it. And she saw that in the script. And so Emma Roberts agreed to do the movie based on the script, the short film I'd made, and then my conversation with her, where we kind of had this instant connection. It was still very much pandemic, so the connection happened over Zoom, but like I felt it. We had this kind of synergy where we immediately felt very comfortable with each other, and she immediately signed on. And so, you know, there was no like pulling strings there behind the scenes. It was just the case of an actor reading something and responding to the material. And what I like about that story is that like you're told that never happens. And I like that it happened, because obviously it's beneficial for me, but like I like that it happened because I think people should know these things can happen. luck can be on your side, and that was luck. It's luck combined with her responding to my work and the script itself. And then in terms of Michael Shannon, the famous Michael Shannon coming on board, he is also managed by my manager, Byron Wetzel. But that doesn't mean that he automatically does your film, because he's been nominated for a couple of Oscars, so he doesn't just do any film. He's kind of important, and for very good reason. But he did this film because he responded to what I had to say about what I wanted to do with it, which was, attempt to tell a grounded story about someone struggling with their mental health. And he's the type of artist that if you come to him with a specific goal and intent, and it's genuine, he has a truth meter unlike anybody I've ever met, which I'm sure makes sense because his work, that's what makes his work so brilliant, is that it is so truthful. If you come to him with truth, he responds. And I came to him with truth. I said, look, I'm a first-time feature director, but I want to tell this story that means a lot to me. Will you join me? And he joined.
Amazing. And, with John and Emma playing the young couple that moves into this remote farmhouse with their infant son and then struggles with that postpartum psychosis, what I personally responded to very well is, there's been a lot of talk about the overusage of the term elevated horror. And this is, I want to give it its due in its own right of being just a extremely well made film that deals with issues, but not heavy handedly. And I, as a father of two kids, having a wife that went through something similar, I appreciated that it was there it was present, that psychosis was present, but it wasn't, heavy handed. It's still a horror movie. It has atmosphere. And it's not a message movie per se, where you're necessarily trying to over communicate something. Like it can be up to the audience what their takeaways are. So I just really appreciated that. And I don't know how much of that was intentional to not really push the envelope too much on any specific type of message.
Thank you for acknowledging that this was it's a very tricky subject matter to navigate. It's particularly when you put it in this package of a film that has horror elements in it, because finding that balance and getting the tone right was very difficult, because especially with any movie where you're dealing with mental health, the trap that you can fall into is to go, over the top into what people might call camp or like overacting or things like that. And it was really important to me because this is a serious issue. It's an issue that I lived through with a friend of mine who struggled with specifically postpartum depression. General mental health issues are things that I've lived through. It's not something that I wanted to make a farce or a joke about, of course. But unfortunately, it can sometimes go that way. And so that was something that on set, well, first of all, I think declaring that intent even up front, and that was a part of my initial conversations with Emma, and with all the actors, and that trickled down through my department heads. We are not making the fabulous over the top version of a woman losing touch with reality, which it very well could have been. And there's some, fabulous movies in our cinematic history that are like that. I always kind of jokingly reference This Is Not Mommy Dearest, which is a movie that, has its own special place in so many people's hearts. But, I just didn't want this to be that. But I will say, once the intent was declared, there was never a time when it felt it needed to be reined in on set. Everybody kind of understood that we were doing like the real version of these struggles. It wasn't the over the top version. There was never, I can't think of a time when I had to go up to Emma when we were shooting and say, hey, Emma, like, let's let's get to a more grounded place. She automatically was there because she knew and she understood what we were doing, because she's a very smart actress. And she came prepared, and she came ready to work, and she came ready to make a great movie. So it wasn't so much of a struggle. I would say the struggle really happened in the post process, because there were conflicting forces, where I really wanted to tell this respectful version of these mental health issues. And the powers that be, especially me being a first-time feature director, wanted to push it more into a kind of broader, more, fun haunted house story, which is not exactly what I wanted it to be. Yes, it is a house that is haunted by, almost like metaphorical ghosts of the past, of course. But to me, it was, mainly about these mental health struggles. That was kind of like the through line for me when I made the film. So, that's the fun in making your first feature, is how do you navigate that? How do you maintain your initial intent when there are powers that have power over you that want it to be something else?
Sure. Well, I appreciate you standing your ground, and then also having enough confidence in yourself to let things breathe. And I think that speaks to you as a director, coming from that the acting background too, is just allowing scenes to I just really appreciate that, like not feeling like you need to fill the space with a lot of overextending certain dialogue. And I don't know if that was part of the script process too, where you were like, you know what, I could probably just let this scene just be for a moment, because it really helps in the horror, as a viewer, just the atmosphere, build that tension up even further.
Thank you I'm glad that you responded to that, because that was something that was very divisive, and in the post process, in terms of the pacing of the film. I will stand by the fact that the film is purposefully slowed down at times. That was an intent. Whether or not certain people respond to that is not up to me. That's the wonderful thing about making creative stuff, is that not everybody's going to really get it or want it or like it, or that's, and that's fine. But yeah, that was important to me, especially when you're dealing with a character that is struggling with depression, as Emma's character is, based on my own experience, sometimes your energy is not so high, and you're not the most, talkative person, and you're not showing up with the most charisma to every engagement that you're having. And so I think that is part of the pacing, is that we let moments linger. We let her character sit in moments, and not always have to like follow up with the next line, or follow up with the next zinger, or follow up with the next plot point that's going to keep people on the edge of their seat, because that is the truth of being in a depressed state, so.
Well, yeah, well done. And I'm not giving enough credit to some of the unsung heroes of the cast as well too. Maybe one of the reasons, this was brought to you is maybe you didn't get the memo that never work with babies and never work with animals, and you ended up kind of doing both in a way. And but this baby was just the most adorable kiddo. I know there are some moments where it's not behaving, but I feel like those were all done after the fact, because that baby just looked like the perfect child. How was it working with the baby?
Oh my goodness, I will never do it again. But it made for some really magical moments, because the thing is, no kidding, you can't control babies. I would say, yeah, I know that rule, don't work with animals or babies. I would say animals, at least you can train them. A baby is not trainable to some degree, especially not a 9-month-old baby, which is
Baby wasn't taking your notes back.
Baby didn't take notes. Baby did not take the notes.
Yeah.
And actually, in all seriousness, it was, there are little tricks you can use to elicit certain emotional reactions from babies. And it was really important to me, in all seriousness, that we didn't do things like take the bottle from the baby to make it cry. It felt like not proper. It just felt uncomfortable to me. So basically what we had to do was roll the camera and then cross our fingers. And what happened is that more often than not, there's some wide shots in the film where the baby is perfect for the entire wide shot. And it was miraculous. And there's one specific scene. It's the last conversation that Michael Shannon has with Emma Roberts, where they're both on the couch together, where it's got to be at least a minute, the baby in the first take of the wide shot just looks up at Michael Shannon for the whole take with such wonder and amazement. And it's one of those things where you can't plan for that, and you can't make that up. You can't force it. And it was this magical moment to watch this small human genuinely it looked like it was in awe of Michael Shannon. Which makes sense. It's not that hard to be in awe of Michael Shannon, but it's fascinating to see this little baby looking up at Michael Shannon for so long and never breaking breaking eye contact or crying or ruining the scene, so that we could use so much of that one take for that one scene. We sat in the wide for so long on that. But I would also say the last thing you need if you're going to work with a baby is a great editor. And that's what I had. I had this editor, his name is Matthew L. Weiss. He edited this amazing film from a couple of years ago with Aubrey Plaza called Black Bear.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Sundance.
Sundance movie. Yeah. And that's actually how I found him, because I was a huge fan of that film. And he came on to this film, and he is brilliant. And he sifted through all these kind of long takes of just trying to capture something from the baby. And he cherry picked these magical moments that you see in the film, these little reaction shots of the baby looking just right, where it almost looks like the baby was directed, but that is called an editor with a keen and brilliant eye. So I actually have to give him like all the credit for the baby.
Well, since we're giving credit around, I know that a movie is it takes a village to make it. And with your background, it sounds like you're just a film historian and film lover, so you probably have picked up on different skill sets just being on set. But if there's an area where you were really leaning the most on someone, like for me, that would be anything DP related. I would be in trouble. So I don't know if there's a specific person, line producer or someone that you're like, boy, like I could maybe make this thing, but this I could, like this specific area I could not.
Oh, I think the camera is it's like this mysterious box to me. I don't know. I actually read a textbook on cinematography before I shot the film, because I'd known from my short film how mysterious all that was to me. And I read a textbook, and it was like reading a book on calculus. I couldn't understand anything in the textbook. It's just something. I wasn't good at math and science in high school. And there is so much of cinematography that is almost like math based. Literally at times. And I tried to process it and I couldn't. And so that's hands down the area where I had to put a lot of faith in my cinematographer, who is another brilliant emerging cinematographer whose name is Corey C. Waters. He'd done a lot of amazing commercial and music video work, and he had a couple features under his belt. But I saw his work and I saw something so special in it. And I asked him, please do this with me. And cinematographers, especially people that are as talented as he is, they're very, and for good reason, they're very suspicious of first-time feature directors, because, they don't know how it's going to go. And so I'm really grateful that he trusted me and came on board. And there are certain things when you direct a film that I think you can say, like, objectively are good. I can't say the film is good, but I can say that the cinematography is stunning, because 100%. I didn't create it. he did.
Well, yes. But to your earlier point about kind of fate taking you so far, and you taking the next step and things kind of working out, is the two of you finding one another and creating that partnership, because it is, one of my big pet peeves is not being able to see what the hell's happening in dark scenes. And that is not an issue at all with your film. And it is lit perfectly. I love the shot selection and yeah. So clearly you all have, you all managed through just a really great partnership and relationship and it shows on the screen as well.
Yeah, he's really brilliant, and he I believe is a cinematographer to watch. I mean, he's very young, but he, in terms of age, so he has a lot coming up. And it was very hard. His work is so good, and he did it in so little time with so little resources. All the departments were understaffed, of course, because we had this micro budget, and there were of course never enough grips, and we didn't have a wonderful selection of equipment. We had the bare minimum, and what he was able to do with the bare minimum is it just totally leaves me in awe. It's just amazing. And I would say that for each of the departments, because I think the production design looks beautiful. And that was my production designer, whose name is Madison Hatch. And I think the costumes are fascinating and brilliant. And that was my costume designer, Michelle Lane. I found these brilliant heads of department that were willing to take a risk on this film for a little budget with a first-time feature director. And I can't give them enough credit for the kind of brilliant work that they did.
Well, you mentioned people to watch. You're certainly, Spencer, someone that I'm going to be watching for and looking forward already to your next feature. Before I let you go, the film is about the couple purchasing a home that and by the way, Kate Arrington, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning Kate Arrington. Thank you.
Steals like the scenes that she's in as a real estate agent, like creep factor off the charts. And then just great scenes. I have to ask you, a deal or no deal, would you buy a house that someone had passed away in? We'll just say passed away, not murdered or anything beyond that, but we'll just say passed away. Is that something you would feel comfortable personally doing?
1000%.
All right. Especially if you're getting a good deal, right?
If you're getting a good deal, absolutely. And I think and I think Emma Roberts feels the same in this movie, and that's why it makes sense.
She was pretty quick to say yes. So,
she's quick, but because she likes a little haunting. So,
I'm good for a little haunt. Yeah, that was good stuff. Like in humor, breaking up tension with like levity is so important to me as well too. I'm always looking, you don't want to be tense the whole time. So just kudos again. The film is Abandoned. Here with me is Spencer Squire. Film comes out Friday, June 17th in theaters. Please see it in theaters. We already talked about that it's cinematic in nature, the way that it was shot. It definitely deserves being seen in theaters. But if you can't make it to theaters or it's not playing near you, make sure to check it out on streaming on June 24th. Spencer, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. Remember me for the next one. Okay.
Oh, you're remembered. The purple will never go away.
I just happened to have the shirt. I couldn't find any of my NU swag. I was searching through it at last minute. I saw the connection there. I was like, I got to find an NU shirt. And lo and behold, all I have is this lavender looking color, but nonetheless.
Look, I'm colorblind. So like it all looks the same to me. So
another reason to have like a solid cinematographer.
Oh, that's what I said to him. It was one of the first things I said. I'm colorblind, just so you know. So don't abuse that fact, please.
Right.
He would never do that, but some would.
Hey, honestly, genuinely amazing film. And I could never have guessed first time feature filmmaker. Just a lot of experience. It felt like that was behind the camera there as well too. So yeah, looking forward to it. Enjoy the rest of the interviews and junkets, and I'm looking forward to figuring out where it's playing near me to go give it another chance in theaters as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Of course. Hey, take care. Have a good one.